Hello friends, today I went fishing at the river and I want to tell you about it. 10 tips for feeder fishing. I'm sure you'll find this useful, and the very first tip is a practical one. A little aside, the way I shoot videos for fishing, very often my friends and I go to these wild places where no one has been before, and we often clear away branches. Branches, reeds, we clear all of this away to make space for fishing. The first rule you should know for any fishing trip: friends, there is no place for you on the river. It's all common. As they say, the first one to put on the shoes gets the slippers. Even if you prepared this spot, like if you set it up or cleared it out, if you arrive and it's occupied, that's it. Just go to another one. So today, a similar story happened to me. I arrived at the place where I planned to fish, where I did everything, cleaned it clean, cool, tried. There was half a day, arrived, the place was taken. I didn't say anything at all. I just turned around and went to the next spot. You should do the same, because everything here is shared. This is your home. The next piece of advice sounds funny compared to the first. Prepare your spot, clean it up, take care of the grass, and remove the weeds, because it's nice to fish in a place that's clean, organized, and comfortable. You can walk around easily, and there are no snags or anything else. You can get through or you can't. Snags and everything else? So, try to do everything to ensure that everyone can fish comfortably. So why feeder fishing? Feeder fishing is great because we can fish from a long distance. Fish move away from the shore because they are afraid of people. And the big fish and different schools of fish are now further away from the shore because there's noise and commotion here. They swim in the current where it's not so hot, where there's oxygen and everything else. So feeder fishing is always great. I fish with gear from the company Flagman. This is a budget rod I have from Canal Feeder, paired with a river feeder 5000 reel power, which I've been using for over 3 years. Guys, the rods are very cheap. I like them, There are rods, you take the butt, thick like a stick, but a bit rough. Here everything is delicate and inexpensive, so if you are interested, this rod will really leave you satisfied. The links will be in the description. I am still collecting, and we will continue with you further. I often see comments from you, Seryoga, about this cool suitcase you have, where you carry all your fishing gear and that chair you sit on. Guys, this is a mini platform Flagman. This is a platform that I fell in love with a long time ago, and it is probably one of the best things I have for fishing. The platform itself is like a suitcase with all my boxes and cases with gear inside. You can hang equipment nearby. You can hang any equipment on the side of the platform, be it a big box for bait or a table. And this wonderful rod holder, which can be adjusted in length and angle, is called the Inja feeder arm. You've already seen that I have a syringe. Friends, today I'm going to tell you how to make a maggot float by making a small puncture. My next tip for you is to always check the bottom using a marker lead. Marker cargo is cargo with these, with its ears and paws above it like a small bomb, a sea mine, with the help of which you can break through the bottom, understand what is there, grass, a shell, not a shell, and everything else. Even if you were fishing here yesterday, come and check it out. Maybe some bush or grass has washed in or something else, so you don't end up feeding an empty spot. Yes, marker checks might take you a little time, but it's precious time that you won't waste later when you're reeling in a fish. You won't have any break-offs, snags, or anything like that. Make sure to use a marker. I've explained how to do this many times before. After all this, we start with the baiting. There are a lot of different types of bait. There are yellow baits, there are dark baits, there are baits for carp, for sharks, for chub, whatever you want. But that doesn't mean that if it's for sharks, it will catch a shark, right? Guys, choose your bait according to the season. Usually, it's common to use light bait in the summer and dark bait in the fall and winter. Well, just do it that way. And here's another tip for you. Always add some kind of porridge to your bait in the summer. It could be millet, wheat porridge, pearl barley, or bulgur. We cooked it at home in a pot and added it. It won't take you much time or money either. The next important part about baiting is how to moisten it. You can add a lot of water or just a little. If you want to catch roach or bream, the bait needs to be dusty. It should create a bit of murkiness and shouldn't be heavy, but should be fine dispersion, meaning the particles should be small. If you want to catch bream, crucian carp, or other fish, your bait needs to be on the bottom. It should be well moistened, and there must be larger particles in it. So, either you add them yourself, as I mentioned, to the porridge, or you choose a bait. that already has those larger particles. Guys, believe me, when I tell you all this, I don't want to deceive you. I'm not competing with you. I am only telling you what I have experienced personally on my many fishing trips. Over all these years on the river and at the reservoir, I'm just an ordinary fisherman like you. And I fish just the same way with simple tackle. What's the most delicate part of the feeder? That's right, friends, this is the quiver tip. It's tip. So you don't break it here. With this first part, I always recommend keeping the line tight. Never give slack. How do I do this? When I open the bail, my finger always looks like this when casting. And just before the very cast, when the feeder is already set and everything is tight, I make this kind of movement. If everything moves freely and nothing is getting caught, it means I don't have any tangles. 100% at the top, and I can throw it perfectly, I won't break anything. It may sound funny, but over the years it becomes subconscious. Every time, you should check like this to make sure nothing is getting caught. So, we've already chosen a spot, cleaned it up, marked it with a weight, and baited it. Now, what are we going to fish with? What should we use to get a bite? Look, but it's going to be awesome. In general, maggots, wheat, pearl barley, of course bloodworms if you can get them, and maybe dungworms in other places you can catch something with different tackle. It all works with maggots. Wheat, pearl barley. Of course bloodworms if you can buy them. And dungworms, perhaps in other places, something caught on other gear. But where I fish in my region, these are the best baits. You shouldn't go fishing without maggots. If you have bloodworms, you'll just be the king of fishing. It's really hard to buy bloodworms, especially in the summer, and they don't last long. So if you buy them today, if it's hot outside, by the end of the fishing trip, the bait will be spoiled, or if you're going out at night, then you won't have any problems with bloodworms. The main thing with bloodworms is transportation. Back in the day, when I used to go fishing at the reservoir with maggots, I was just killing it in winter, spring, summer, and fall. Just one maggot and 3-4 bloodworms. Man, the bream were just biting like crazy. But I had this one time while fishing, when I was out there, and next to me was Sergey Ivanovich, who was catching roach on pearl barley. I'm fishing from a great spot, I've baited it with shellfish, but I'm not getting any bites. So I take some pearl barley from him. On the feeder I put on 2 grains and I get these bites from roach. There are times when the fish bite on grains better, in warm weather than on worms, maggots, and other baits. You should always have these kinds of baits with you, like plant-based baits. We don't know what they'll bite on today and what they'll bite on tomorrow. The funniest thing is, you might ask Sergey, why do you need a syringe? Sometimes I fish in the current or I fish in the water column. The fish doesn't stay right on the bottom. It either hovers just above the bottom or somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I can make a thin leader and it will sink slower. But if I pierce the maggot and pump it with air, our maggot will float right on the surface. I want to tell you right away that this life hack only works with maggots. It won't work with any other bait. So what are we doing? I'm taking one maggot. Of course the maggot should be alive, good and whole. And we thread this maggot onto the hook. We thread it on carefully. Whoa! There are also many ways to hook a maggot. Now I'll show you all of them. Look, here's the maggot. We throw it into the water and of course it sinks. You can see right away that it's sinking. The weight of the hook, the maggot, is on the bottom. There it is. Whoa! Maggot on the hook. Insulinsyreenge. And carefully we make a puncture. With the syringe, there's nothing in it, just air. We make the puncture gently, at the edge under the skin. The syringe definitely has to be an insulin one. If it's a different type, it won't work. Look right away, Obi. The larva has inflated. It's become huge. So here it is, just huge, I would say. And this larva will now float. Let's check it out. We throw it into the water. Look, the larva is just floating, see? This way, along the entire length of our line, no matter what it is, the feeder will be on the bottom, while the bait will be floating in the water column. We can add a second maggot or we can use a bloodworm. And it will all be floating up top. Even if we add a second partner to the inflated maggot, they'll still float together. He's holding it. Here. One is wiggling and the other one is wiggling too. Look at this bait. What could be better for active fish? That which takes from the water column or from the surface. And actually, pay attention. I filled the water from the river. Look at how much life is in there. It's all kinds of little creatures, bugs, larvae, guys. I filled the water from the river right here, right under our feet. And then we ask why there are no bites today, so here's the answer. Look at how much food is there. We need to do something exclusive for it. The eternal question that troubles everyone. Leader. What length and diameter should the leader be? Friends, you should never get hung up on whether it's 50 centimeters, 16 or 60, or 55, or 52, or 53. To be honest, I always make it by eye, about 50 centimeters. My standard leader for feeder fishing. I want to catch some fish in the water column. I see there's some up to a meter there. I've never made it 2 meters or 1.5. It's uncomfortable to fish like that. So about 50, 60 or 70 centimeters for bream. We're making a leader. If it's roach, you can play around with it a bit more. But it depends on what kind of bottom you have, where you're fishing, and what the current is like. You need to take that into account. The diameter of the leader is always a golden rule. The thinner, the better, because even now in summer, the fish are cautious, especially the bigger ones. They're a bit scared. And we always, if we can, use a thin one, but even if you put a leader on and you're getting bites like bream or roach, you'll still catch fish. But it's best if you make, for example, the leader and you're getting bites. There will be bream, roach, it will still be caught. But it's best if you make it, for example, the thinner, the better. Remember this. Sometimes it happens that you go fishing, mix up a lot of bait out of foolishness, and it ends up being too much. What to do with it? How can I preserve it to use on the next fishing trip? Guys, I've tried everything during my time, even freezing it. I dried it, rolled it into bowls, and sifted it at home in the sun. It still ends up going bad. It's best when you take it home, put it in a bag, and immediately throw it in the fridge. Or it's best to put it in the freezer. If you're going fishing tomorrow or the day after, put it in the fridge in the 0 compartment, where the temperature is 0. It's +1, +2. If you're going fishing later, like next weekend, just throw it in the freezer. Then take it out in the evening to thaw it, already frozen in ice, and leave it until morning. With us, you will have whatever you need in other ways. No, it will always spoil, it will smell bad, and it will whistle. It only freezes on the hooks. Guys, I've run out of a lot of hooks already. Empty packs, you see. There's nothing left. But my favorite sizes are, of course, 14, 12, 16. Something like that works really well. Hooks made with red wire. Hooks made from red wire. Red wire hooks always attract fish well, both in winter and in summer. I have noticed this. You see, there it is, this wire. Red on the hooks, again, who catches what? I like thinner line, smaller hook, more sporty gear. Someone likes thick line. A thick hook will want to bite. They say they all love differently, but in general, friends, no one ever knows how to fish correctly, where to fish correctly, and what it is all about. Fishing tales and fantasy and fairy tales. Are there any specific rules and methods? But the rule is that it's caught this way, so that's how it should be. But no one knows what's best. You always have to try, and you always have to strive for what you will catch. That is, go out with the mood. So you will have something, at the very least you will have a great rest. Friends, one more little hint from me to you. Look, when you cast and are fishing with one rod, bam, the rod goes past the clip, you put it on the stand and rest the butt on your knee. And just sit there quietly, don't fidget. Why is that? On your knee, if you get a bite right away, you just go whoop, your hand is right here. Rest the butt of the rod on your knee, and as soon as you feel a bite, you set the hook and start reeling in. While you put it on the stand, move it back and forth. But that's, of course, if the fish are biting actively. If the bite is weak, yeah, just put it on the stand. I do that myself quite often, and just sit there watching. But often it happens, you just cast it, rest it on your knee, and you just sit there waiting for every little bite. It's also really cool when you're not just resting it on your knee, but you're also holding your hand there, just like that, with your finger here. You rest your finger there, and you're ready to set the hook at any moment, to lift your rod into action. And you feel the bite. Even if you turn away or look somewhere else, you'll feel the hit. The fish will bite. You'll see the tip twitching. You might even feel it on your leg. If your finger is here, you'll feel it right away. It transmits everything here. We're used to putting the maggot on like this. We're looking for it. The head, where there are 2 little dots, and we thread it through the very edge, and it wiggles and flops around like this. But there are days and situations when the fish just refuse to bite, and they only nibble like this, when the maggot is threaded on like a worm, meaning we take it by the head and thread it through like a worm. Here, the hook is hidden, only the sting sticks out. What difference does it make, you ask, right? What does that fish need anyway? Well, no way, she just wants to peck and that's it. Who knows what's going on in its head? And if we thread it like a worm and pump it up, can you believe that? Look at what a bait we have here. Oh! It's just great. This maggot is going to float now. If you have the option to choose when to go fishing, in the evening or early in the morning, I would choose early morning. I'll explain why right now. It's all very simple. Just like with spinning, we have a day, part of which is night. During the day, the fish is active, it eats something here and there, it's hot, it swims, or it doesn't swim, and at night it sleeps. It's exactly when the fish is sleeping at night, especially the white fish, that it feeds less than during the day. And in the morning it starts going yum yum yum. Even if it's feeding well at night, in the morning it finishes up and moves on, somewhere to hide from the predator or wait out the heat. So it's always best to fish very early in the morning. I've often had it where I come to fish for bream, which is supposed to be a night fish. You'd think, bream, bite at night. You spend the whole evening feeding it, from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., just feeding and feeding this little river pig. It's not biting. It's not biting at 1 in the morning, not at 2, not at 3. In the morning, dawn begins and you get your first bites from bream, and they bite until about 7 or 8 o'clock. So the entire amount of fish that I catch it specifically during the early morning twilight. Yeah, I was feeding, it was awesome, but man, it really happened during the early morning twilight. Why is that? Nobody knows. Recasting, interval. How often should we recast the feeder, guys? I like to recast often, but again, it depends on what fish we're catching. If we're fishing for roach, I recast every minute or two depending on the bite, but generally, if it's a reservoir or a river, a good spot is well fed, and everything is chosen correctly, it should work within a minute. There will be a bite for sure, and if not, what do? We take and do a retrieve. Now I'll tell you how it's done. Our task is, when our feeder is on the bottom, to slightly pull the feeder a bit further along the line. In this way, we pull the feeder, creating an effect of cloudiness here, and our line. Next, with the nozzle, which is behind the feeder, it will stretch slightly, so the bait will make a movement along the bottom. The fish that swims at the top looks at this food, eats it, sees the movement of the bait, and, as a rule, it happens immediately. A bite right after 2-3 seconds. You'll have a bend in the tip, so give it a try. You can also, as you suggested in the comments, do not just a retrieve. Here's the reel. As I do the retrieve, the tip is taut. I slightly reel it in, just a half turn. Once the quiver tip is pulled tight, I wind it. Our task is to have the tip go like this, and go, and go. Then suddenly it should pull back a bit under tension. You advise me, Sergey, just take it like this, lift the rod, put it back, and immediately reel it in. So don't pull the feeder, just slightly lift it off the bottom, and then drop it back down. This also helps. Write to me in the comments what you used and which method you like best. Lifting or just pulling. Just in case, I'll leave links to all my gear in the description. Maybe you'll find it interesting. The rod has a cork handle, a good, not too thick butt. It's well made, guys. It's delicate by itself and catches any fish really well. But what I personally like about it is its sensitivity. I see the bite, even the tiniest one, from small roach, small bream, crucian carp. I see it all. It's just super smooth drag. Even this budget reel works fine. It's powerful and has lasted for 3 years. Damn, it's my top choice. If I need something, I grab it right away, without thinking. I have a lot of expensive rods, but I like this one because it's thin and elegant, and I really like that. I hope you liked something from this video. Something was new, something you knew. You will like and subscribe, because it is your support that, so to speak, stimulates me to release new videos. And if you like this format, the video I made now is conversational with tips and answers, so feel free to leave your questions in the comments. In general, when you write something, I try to respond to you guys as much as I can in a timely manner, but I read all the comments. I see everything you write. This is all I need for fishing. I've got the platform, the feeder, and the bait, all with me.